A quick thank you to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Duck Machine, Try Again 95, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Budic Joel, Germanchemist, Casper Arnholtz, and Chaos to Must. Thank you very much. Total War, written by Gheistling. We, Zadaran, are a civilized species. We live in peace with our fellow member species, and when conflict occurs, we settle our differences like civilized beings, not like these savages. I will show today that the humans should be made to pay reparations and be censured, Senior Arbiter Actalman said. The Zadaran paused, letting the silence linger, his insectile, multifaceted eyes managing to meet every member's eyes. He finally continued, the translator in the hearing room individually modulating the words pouring out from his mandibles so that the various member species could understand it. The newest race to join the Galactic Alliance, the Terrans, are different. They aren't following the law of reparations. They have no respect for our traditions, our laws, Actalman continued, turning to face the Council. The human arbiter rose to her feet. The Council recognizes Arbiter Sarah Dawkins of the Terran Federation, intoned a robotic voice. The artificial intelligence that moderated all Council meetings recognized the Terran's right to speak. What Senior Arbiter Actalman fails to mention are the repeated and constant infringements on our sovereign territory. Not only did they violate our space, the Zendarans repeatedly broke the treaties we held with them. They murdered civilians and military personnel without compunction, Sarah said. At this, Actalman broke in, the 4 vestigial wings on his back buzzing in irritation. Any and all treaties that were broken led to immediate reparations. The Terran response to these minor violations was outsized and irresponsible, and will not be tolerated by my people. They destroyed an entire hive. That is enough, Arbiter Actalman, said the head of the Council Gru, as the representative sent by the founding species of the Galactic Alliance. The Hold-On's political presence wasn't outsized as a physical. The massively muscled, scaled body combined with the sweeping horns on her head made her resemble a dragon-centaur combination from Terran myth. I would like more details on the situation in general before we, the Council, decide what must be done. You, Arbiter Actalman, are a member of a young race, just as these Terrans are. Any reprimands, any censures will be made by our decision. Turning her long reptilian neck to face the Zadaran ambassador, Gru said, List your grievances, Arbiter, and honor the protocols. I will tolerate no further outbursts. Bowing his head and lowering his wings in contrition, Actalman said, My apologies, Elder. Clearing his throat, as Elderman moved on, Over the last decade, my people have started heavily colonizing the Diomedes asteroid belt. The Terrans, admittedly, have possession of many of the asteroids that we have seized, but we have made reparations for every loss that they've taken. Roughly 6 standard months ago, we seized an asteroid the Terrans designated CT-871. The asteroid contains truly astonishing quantities of amniworms, which we all know are vast, said Actalman. The Zadaran paused, looking at the Terran Arbiter, but she simply motioned for him to continue. In the acquisition of the asteroid, we did have to liquidate a significant number of Terran miners, but we promptly paid our due in reparations. Let no one say that the Zadarans are not civilized. Actalman turned to the Terran once again, but again, she simply motioned for him to continue. The Zandaran cleared his breathing tubes and continued, Since the seizure of CT-871, the Terrans have engaged in strike after strike on our holdings, not just on the asteroid, but they have driven us completely out of the Diomedes. Not only have they taken our property, but they have refused to honor any kind of reparations. Instead, these barbarians insist that we leave the Diomedes behind. They don't care that we want the anti-worms. They don't care about the treaties our people have. They refuse to negotiate, even with an offer to reduce the reparations that we are owed. Since the Terrans refuse to act civilized, we humbly request that they be censured. We further request that they pay reparations for our losses, and face additional censures on top of that, finished the Zaldaran Arbiter, his wings splashing in an intricate display that seemed to emphasize his words. The council murmured amongst itself before finally Elder Ghoul turned back to the two arbiters. As a union of hundreds of disparate species, conflict is not unknown to our council. The law of reparations was in place 4,000 years before the Zaldarans made the great achievement, 5,000 years before the Terrans left the home planet for the first time. The Terrans themselves have barely joined our ranks, having only made the discovery of the pathway in the last century. The draconic Holden frowned and continued, directing her reptilian gaze to the Terran Arbiter. We would now like to hear from the Terrans, to know their side of this conflict. I fear that the Zaldaran case may prove valid, and if so, reparations will be made. For every life your kind took from them, you will sacrifice one of your own, and if we have to censure you, it will be 2 Terrans for every Zaldaran. Arbiter Stera stood once again, her gaze meeting the mass of Holdens without flinching. Thank you, Alda, for allowing me to represent my people to this council. While we are admittedly a young race when compared to some of the species that represent this distinguished council, we try to be fair one. We try to work towards peace. We try to support our allies. We try to make the galaxy a better place. Motioning towards the Zaldaran Arbiter, she continued. Though hesitant, we allowed the Zaldarans an entry into the Diomedes cluster a decade ago, after they declined our trade offer on the Omniworms. We did this to keep the peace, to be civilized, even though it wasn't in our best interest. Since that time, the Zaldarans have encroached further and further on our holdings. They've shot down our ships, they have murdered our miners, destroyed entire space stations. When we pursue their ships, they retreat back into their hive centers. Then they pay their reparations out of their worker class. From there, their scenario simply repeats itself, except that they are further into our space, and more of our people are dead. Noctelman stood up and said, I do not understand the point of this, Elder Gru. The Terran Arbiter is simply rehashing what I've said already. War was waged and reparations were paid. This is the way. Elder Gru replied, I have to agree with the Zaldaran Arbiter Dawkins. This is the way of things. This is how the law of reparations is enforced. The Arbiter looked down, gathering her thoughts as the council started muttering again. When she looked up at the council, Gru motioned for silence. The Zaldaran Arbiter is correct about what has happened. He is also correct that my species is different. The Zaldarans are willing to sacrifice their civilians while their soldiers kill us. They are willing to wage war of attrition when they determine if they won or lost based on how many of the people they sacrifice. Zara continued, We are not willing to wage this kind of war. We will not mechanically sacrifice our people in this kind of conflict. We value each individual Terran life, none more so than another. If the Zaldarans want a war, they will have a war. We will drive them from our space, inch by inch. We will push them until they fall, till they die, till they no longer want to fight. We will destroy their hives, and if they decide to attack our stations again, we'll destroy those too. We will take back our territory, or we will burn it to ashes. If the Zaldarans destroy one of our space stations, then we'll destroy one of their planets. We will not pay reparations, ever. If the council decides that you will enforce them on us, then you'll have war. Our kind of war. We will fight, and if we die, we will die, as one, united. We'll wage war like the Alliance has never seen. We'll burn the galaxy down if that's what it takes to show you how serious we take the situation. The Terran Arbiter stopped and looked around the council room. For the first time since the proceedings had begun, it was completely silent. The Galactic Alliance can have the law of reparations. The Terrans will have the total war. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and